They terrorized the galaxy, until a lone human battleship entered orbit, became reality as Captain Reyes unleashed the experimental photon lance. The blinding beam pierced the Jarok flagship, striking Admiral Jacques' command center. Though the Herald suffered catastrophic damage, its sacrifice ignited hope across the stars, one defiant ship changing the course of an empire's invasion. The vastness of space had never felt so oppressive. Captain Lana Reyes stood at the command bridge of the UES Herald, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The holographic projection showed the overwhelming odds: a single human battleship against the infamous Black Fleet of the Jarok Empire. For half a century, the Jaroks had terrorized dozens of galaxies, leaving a trail of subjugated worlds and broken civilizations in their wake. Their warships were technological marvels, their commanders ruthless and efficient. And now, they had set their sights on humanity's last frontier. "Status report," Reyes demanded, her voice steady despite the weight on her shoulders. Lieutenant Commander Jax Torres, her tactical officer, looked up from his console. "All systems operational, Captain. But I must emphasize again, we're severely outgunned. The Jarok fleet has 23 capital ships in formation around Celestia Gateway. The year was 2487, and humanity had expanded beyond the solar system, establishing colonies across neighboring star systems. The Celestia Corridor was the final border between human space and the encroaching Jarok territory. Once this line fell, Earth and all human worlds would be exposed." Reyes brushed a strand of dark hair from her face, the gesture betraying a rare moment of uncertainty. At 42, she had spent more than half her life in space, rising through the ranks of the United Earth Space Force with a reputation for unorthodox tactics and unwavering resolve. The Herald was her third command, a Valiant-class battleship that represented the pinnacle of human military technology. Yet, even this magnificent vessel seemed inadequate against the looming threat. "We don't need to match them ship for ship," she replied, her gaze still fixed on the display. "We just need to remind them that humans aren't easily conquered." The bridge fell silent as her words hung in the air. Every officer knew what was at stake. Every officer also knew the odds of survival. Major Marco Lee, the science officer, approached with a data pad. His normally cheerful expression was replaced by grim determination. "Captain, I've analyzed the transmission from Celestia Coordination Station before it went dark. The Jarok attack was methodical. They specifically targeted our communication arrays and leadership compounds. They're isolating us," Reyes concluded. "Standard Jarok tactics. Cut off communication, eliminate leadership, then sweep in with overwhelming force while the population is disoriented." Torres shifted uncomfortably. "The last transmission from Admiral Chen," he began. "There is no Admiral Chen on this mission," Reyes interrupted firmly. "Continue." "Sorry, Captain. Admiral Wong's final order was for all remaining vessels to regroup at Proxima Base. The Herald is the only combat-ready warship within 3 light-years of the Celestia Gateway." Reyes nodded slowly, processing this information. The situation was even worse than she had anticipated. The coordination station had been humanity's forward command post, housing both military strategists and civilian administrators who oversaw the delicate political balance of the border colonies. With them captured or killed, panic would spread quickly. "What about the civilian populations on Hestia and Nova Tierra?" she asked, referring to the 2 habitable planets in the system. Ensign Rena Soar, the young intelligence specialist, spoke up from her station. "Preliminary data suggests the Jaroks haven't deployed ground forces yet. They're following their standard invasion protocol, establish orbital dominance before landing troops." Reyes finally turned away from the tactical display, facing her crew directly. The bridge of the Herald was spacious by military standards, but with a full complement of officers at their stations. It felt intimate, a shared space of purpose and danger. "Then we still have time," she said. Our priority is to disrupt their invasion protocol. If we can force them to deviate from their standard tactics, we create opportunities. Captain, Torres interjected. With respect, the Herald wasn't designed to engage multiple enemy capital ships simultaneously. Even with our advanced shield technology, we can't withstand concentrated fire from a Xerox battle group. Reyes allowed herself a small smile. Who said anything about engaging them conventionally? She turned to Major Lee. How's the special project coming along? Lee's eyes widened slightly. The photon lance? It's still experimental. Captain, we've only run simulations. It's never been field tested. Congratulations, Major. You've just been granted a field test opportunity. Reyes turned to the ship's intercom. This is the captain speaking. All department heads to the strategic operations room immediately. Tactical alert. Weapon systems to stand by. Navigation. Plot a course that will keep us hidden in the asteroid field, at the edge of the system. As her orders were acknowledged, Reyes felt a familiar sensation. The crystallization of fear and determination into resolute purpose. The Herald might be just one ship against an empire, but sometimes one was all it took to change the course of history. The strategic operations room buzzed with tense energy as Reyes faced her department heads. The holographic display in the center of the table showed the Xerox fleet in real time, their positions updated by the Herald's long-range sensors. The situation is clear, Reyes began, without preamble. The Xerox Empire has initiated what appears to be a full-scale invasion of the Celestia Gateway. Admiral Wong and the Coordination Station leadership are presumed captured. Earth Command is unaware of the severity of our situation due to communication blackout. We are, effectively, on our own. Dr. Imani Kaur, the ship's chief engineer and shield specialist, leaned forward. Her dark eyes reflected the blue glow of the holographic display. Captain, I must point out that the Herald shields were designed for short-duration engagements. Extended combat against multiple Xerox vessels will deplete our energy reserves beyond sustainable levels. Reyes nodded. Which is why we won't be engaging in extended combat. At least, not conventionally. She gestured to Major Lee. Major, tell them about the photon lance. Lai cleared his throat, activating his own datapad, which projected technical schematics above the table. The photon lance is a theoretical weapon system that my team has been developing for the past 18 months. It utilizes the ship's main reactor to generate a concentrated beam of polarized photons, essentially creating a weapon of unprecedented penetration capability. Torres frowned. I've never heard of this project. It was classified, Reyes explained. Authorized directly by Earth Command under Experimental Weapons Protocol. And untested, Carr added, studying the schematics with growing concern. The energy requirements alone would strain our reactor beyond safety parameters. The risk of catastrophic overload is significant. Lee nodded reluctantly. Dr. Kaur is correct. The system requires modifications to our main power distribution network that weren't included in the original design specifications. Can it be done? Reyes asked simply. Lee and Kaur exchanged a look. Theoretically, yes, Kaur finally replied. But I would need at least 72 hours to reconfigure the power relays and install additional coolant systems. You have 24, Reyes said, based on Xerox invasion patterns. That's how long before they begin landing troops on Hestia and Nova Tierra. Security Chief Commander Dante Wright, who had been silent until now, spoke up. What exactly is your plan, Captain? Even with this photon lance, we're still one ship against 23. Reyes's expression remained impassive. The Xerox rely on precise coordination and overwhelming force. They've never had to deal with an enemy that strikes unexpectedly, targets their weaknesses, and disappears before they can respond effectively. You're proposing guerrilla tactics, Wright said, understanding dawning on his face. In space. Exactly, The asteroid field gives us cover. We hit isolated targets, gather intelligence, rescue key personnel if possible, and most importantly, we disrupt their invasion timeline. Reyes looked around the table. We make them focus on us instead of the civilian populations. And the photon lance? Torres asked. That's our ace. Once we understand their fleet configuration and command structure, we'll identify their most vulnerable point and strike with everything we have. Ensign Soar, who had been invited to the meeting due to her expertise in Xerox tactics, raised her hand tentatively. Captain, I've been studying Xerox fleet formations. Their command ships always occupy the center of their battle groups, protected by at least 5 escort vessels. Reaching their command ship would be nearly impossible. Nearly impossible, Reyes repeated. But not entirely impossible. And that's the margin we'll work with. She stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. Major Lee, Dr. Carr, begin modifications for the photon lance immediately. Commander Torres, work with Ensign Soar to identify potential weaknesses in their fleet formation. Commander Wright, prepare security teams for possible boarding operations. We may need to retrieve information or personnel from captured facilities. As the officers began to disperse, Kor lingered behind. When they were alone, she spoke candidly. Captain, I need to be clear about something. The modifications required for the photon lance will push our systems beyond their design tolerances. If something goes wrong... I understand the risks, Doctor, Reyes said quietly. Do you? Because I'm not just talking about system failures. I'm talking about the potential for a catastrophic antimatter containment breach. The Herald wouldn't just be damaged, it would be vaporized, along with everyone aboard. Reyes met her gaze steadily. If we do nothing, billions of lives across 2 planets will fall under Xerox rule. You've seen the reports from other conquered systems, the forced labor, the resource extraction, the systematic dismantling of cultural identity. I'm asking you to risk 300 lives to save billions. Carr closed her eyes briefly. I'll need my full engineering team, unrestricted access to the reactor core, and your authorization to bypass standard safety protocols. You have it, Reyes said. And Doctor, I wouldn't ask this of anyone else. Your expertise is the only reason I believe this has a chance of working. A hint of a smile crossed Kor's face. Flattery, Captain. Just the truth. Now, let's save these worlds. As Carr left, Reyes remained in the empty operations room, studying the holographic display of the enemy fleet. 23 ships against 1. Impossible odds by any conventional military assessment. But conventional thinking hadn't prepared humanity for the Xerox threat in the first place. The Herald would need to become more than just a warship. It would need to become a symbol, a declaration that humanity would not surrender its freedom without a fight. And Lana Reyes would need to become more than just a captain. She would need to become the embodiment of humanity's resistance. The next 24 hours were a flurry of activity aboard the Herald. The ship remained hidden within the dense asteroid field at the edge of the Celestia system, using the natural debris to mask its energy signature from Xerox sensors. Meanwhile, Dr. Carr and her engineering team worked tirelessly to modify the ship's power distribution systems to accommodate the experimental photon lance. Reyes spent most of this time in the tactical center, reviewing intelligence reports and developing a strategy. Ensign Soar had proven invaluable, her understanding of Xerox fleet movements, allowing them to identify potential vulnerabilities. Their patrol patterns are predictable, Soar explained, highlighting a section of the tactical display. Every 4 hours, they send 2 frigate-class vessels to sweep the outer system. These ships operate at a significant distance from the main fleet. Reyes studied the patrol route. Isolated targets. Perfect for our first strike. Torres looked skeptical. Even their frigates have substantial firepower. Captain, engaging 2 simultaneously would be risky. We won't engage both, Reyes replied. We'll target the lead ship only, using the asteroid field for cover. A quick strike to disable, not destroy. Then we board, retrieve any intelligence, and disappear before the second frigate can respond effectively. Wright nodded approvingly. My security teams are ready. Standard boarding configuration with heavy weapon support. Good. Be prepared for Xerox defense protocols. They're known to initiate self-destruct sequences, rather than allow their vessels to be captured. The tactical planning continued through the ship's night cycle. Reyes allowed herself only 3 hours of rest, her mind constantly cycling through scenarios and contingencies. The weight of command had never felt heavier, yet she found clarity in the pressure. Every decision she made could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. At Oro 600 ship time, Reyes returned to the bridge, finding Major Lee already at his station. The science officer looked exhausted, but satisfied. Progress report, she requested, accepting a cup of synthetic coffee from her yeoman. Dr. Carr and her team have completed the primary modifications, Lee reported. The photon lance is now connected to the main reactor. We've installed additional coolant systems and reinforced the emitter housing. It's as ready as it can be without a proper testing phase. And Dr. Carr? Still in engineering, running final diagnostics. She hasn't slept in 36 hours. Captain. Reyes frowned. Order her to get at least 4 hours of rest. I need her at optimal performance when we engage the enemy. She may resist that order, Lee said with a slight smile. Then make it clear it comes directly from me, and non-compliance will result in her being relieved of duty. Reyes softened her tone. Tell her I appreciate her dedication, but I need her mind clear for what's coming. As Lee acknowledged the order, Torres called from the tactical station. Captain, the Xerox patrol vessels are moving into position. They'll be at the optimal interception point in 47 minutes. Reyes set down her coffee cup. Battle stations. Inform Commander Wright to prepare his boarding team. Navigation. Plot an intercept course that keeps us within the asteroid field until the last possible moment. The bridge transformed as officers moved with practiced efficiency to their combat positions. Status reports flowed in from all departments, each confirming readiness for the coming engagement. Reyes took her command chair, feeling the familiar contours shape themselves to her body. The command interface activated, providing her with direct neural access to the ship's primary systems. It was an intimate connection, the Herald becoming an extension of her will. All hands. This is the captain, she announced shipwide. We are about to engage the enemy. Our objective is to disable and board the lead Xerox frigate, retrieve tactical information, and withdraw without sustaining significant damage. This will be the first of several precision strikes designed to disrupt their invasion timeline and gather intelligence on their fleet configuration. She paused, aware that her next words would set the tone for the entire campaign. The odds are against us. I won't pretend otherwise. But throughout history, humanity has faced overwhelming forces and prevailed through courage, innovation, and determination. Today, we continue that tradition. The Herald may be just one ship, but we carry with us the hopes of billions across the Celestia system and beyond. Remember that with every action you take today. As she concluded her address, Reyes noted the subtle straightening of postures across the bridge. Her words had hit their mark. The crew of the Herald weren't just following orders. They were embracing a purpose. Helm, engage intercept course. Tactical, power to forward shields. Let's introduce ourselves to the Xerox Empire. The Herald glided silently through the asteroid field, its advanced propulsion system leaving minimal energy wake. The massive rocks provided both cover and navigational hazards, requiring the helmsman's constant attention. As they approached the predetermined interception point, Reyes could see the Xerox patrol vessels on the tactical display, 2 frigate-class ships moving in a standard search pattern. Target locked on lead vessel, Torres reported. Weapons hot. Hold fire until we clear the asteroid field, Reyes ordered. We need a clean shot at their propulsion systems. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the Herald maneuvered through the final cluster of asteroids. The moment they emerged, Reyes gave the command. Fire! The Herald's main cannons unleashed a barrage of concentrated energy, striking the unsuspecting Xerox frigate precisely at its engine housing. The enemy vessel lurched violently, secondary explosions cascading along its hull as critical systems failed. Direct hit, Torres confirmed. Their propulsion and weapon systems are offline. Life support remains functional. The second frigate is altering course, Soar reported. They're moving to assist. Intercept course, Reyes commanded. Prepare to disable their communications array. They can't be allowed to alert the main fleet. The Herald banked sharply, bringing its forward batteries to bear on the second Xerox vessel. A precision strike severed the ship's external communication array, leaving it effectively blind and mute. Both targets neutralized, Torres announced. Minimal energy expenditure on our part. Reyes nodded, satisfied with the initial phase of their operation. Commander Wright, deploy your boarding team to the lead frigate. Secure their command center and download all tactical data. You have 15 minutes. Wright's voice came through the comm. Understood, Captain. Boarding shuttles launching now. On the tactical display, Reyes watched as 3 small craft departed from the Herald's hangar bay, streaking toward the disabled Xerox frigate. The operation was proceeding according to plan, but she knew better than to expect things to remain so straightforward. Captain, Soar called urgently. I'm detecting energy fluctuations in the disabled vessels. They appear to be initiating their self-destruct sequences. Reyes had anticipated this. Patch me through to Commander Wright. When the connection was established, she spoke quickly. Commander, both vessels are preparing to self-destruct. Focus only on retrieving their command codes and fleet configuration data. Forget everything else. Already accessed their main computer. Captain, Wright replied. The sound of weapons fire audible in the background. Downloading now. Encountering heavy resistance near the bridge. Do you need reinforcements? Negative. We can handle it. Data download at 60%. Reyes checked the chronometer. You have 7 minutes before those ships blow. Make every second count. The next few minutes stretched interminably as Reyes watched the boarding operation unfold through the tactical feeds. Wright's team fought their way through the Xerox defenders with disciplined precision, securing the vessel's command center and extracting the critical data. Download complete, Wright finally reported. Returning to the shuttles now. What about Xerox survivors? Reyes asked. There was a brief pause. We encountered 23 crew members. 17 resisted and were neutralized. 6 surrendered and are being brought aboard as prisoners. Understood. Return immediately. As the boarding shuttles disengaged from the Xerox frigate, the energy readings from both disabled vessels spiked dramatically. The self-destruct sequences had reached their final stage. All hands, brace for shockwave, Reyes ordered as the Herald maneuvered away from the impending explosion. Moments later, both Xerox frigates erupted in blinding flashes of energy, the force of the detonation sending tremors through the Herald despite its distance. When the tactical display cleared, nothing remained of the enemy vessels but scattered debris. Boarding team safely recovered, Torres reported. All shuttles docked. Reyes released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Damage report? Minimal shield depletion from the shockwave. No structural damage. Navigation. Take us back into the asteroid field. Maximum stealth protocols. Reyes rose from her command chair. I'll be in the detention area to interrogate the prisoners. Commander Torres, you have the bridge. As she made her way through the ship's corridors, Reyes allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The first strike had been successful, but it was merely the opening move in a much larger game. The real test would come when the main Xerox fleet realized they were dealing with more than just an isolated human warship. They were facing an adversary willing to challenge their very way of war. The Xerox prisoners provided valuable insights. Unlike humans, the Xerox were a silicon-based species, evolved from desert environments. with gray-blue skin that resembled weathered stone, and multifaceted eyes, adapted for extreme light conditions. Their respiratory system required less oxygen and more sulfur compounds, necessitating special atmospheric adjustments in the Herald's detention cells. More importantly, they confirmed what Ensign Soar had deduced from observation. The Jarok fleet was commanded by Rear Admiral Vrax Jacques, a veteran of numerous conquest campaigns, known for his methodical approach and absolute ruthlessness. Jacques' flagship, the Dominance, occupied the center of the Jarok formation, surrounded by heavy cruisers in a defensive configuration. He will not deviate from the invasion protocol. One of the prisoners, a tactical officer, informed Reyes through the translation system. It is the foundation of our military doctrine. 3 days of orbital supremacy, followed by systematic ground invasion. And if the protocol is disrupted, Reyes asked. The Jarok's multifaceted eyes glinted. Impossible. No force has successfully disrupted a Jarok invasion in 47 standard years. Reyes allowed herself a small smile. There's always a first time. Armed with the intelligence gathered from the prisoners and the captured data, Reyes convened another strategy session with her senior officers. The holographic display now showed a detailed analysis of the Jarok fleet, with each vessel classified by type, armament, and position within the formation. Their command structure is hierarchical and rigid, Soar explained. Orders flow exclusively from Admiral Jacques' flagship. The individual vessel commanders have limited autonomy, which makes the entire fleet vulnerable to disruption if we can interfere with their command communications. Major Lee pointed to a specific section of the display. The data from their computer systems includes their communication protocols. With some modifications, we could potentially jam their command frequencies or even insert false orders. That would create confusion, Torres noted, but it wouldn't neutralize their firepower advantage. No, Reyes agreed, but it would buy us time and create opportunities. Dr. Kaur, what's the status of the photon lance? Kaur looked better after her mandatory rest period, though strain still showed around her eyes. The modifications are complete. We've run 3 simulations with promising results. The lance can penetrate standard Jarok shields and cause significant damage to their hull infrastructure. However, she hesitated. Go on, Reyes encouraged. The power requirements are enormous. Each firing sequence will drain our main reactor by approximately 40%. We'll need at least 20 minutes to recharge between shots, during which time our shield and propulsion capabilities will be reduced by half. Reyes considered this limitation. So we get one good shot, then we're vulnerable until the system recharges. Essentially, yes. Then we need to make that one shot count. Reyes turned back to the tactical display. Our next target will be their supply vessels here, at the rear of the formation. They're lightly defended, and their destruction will force the Jaroks to reconsider their invasion timeline. Those ships are still within range of their escort vessels. Wright pointed out. We'd be exposed to counterattack during the recharge period. That's why we'll combine tactics, Reyes explained. Major Lee and Ensign Soar will implement their communication disruption plan simultaneously with our attack. When we strike, we'll also broadcast false orders on their command frequencies, creating confusion about the source of the attack. The strategy session continued for another hour, refining details and contingencies. When it concluded, Reyes could sense both determination and apprehension among her officers. They were committed to the mission, but the risks were becoming increasingly apparent. Over the next 48 hours, the Herald executed 3 more precision strikes against the Jarok fleet. Each attack targeted peripheral vessels, supply ships, sensor platforms, and a fuel tanker, creating logistical problems that would slow the invasion preparations. After each strike, the Herald retreated into the asteroid field, using the natural cover to evade pursuit. The communication disruption tactics proved particularly effective. By broadcasting contradictory orders on Jarok command frequencies, Lee and Soar managed to create confusion within the enemy fleet. On 2 occasions, Jarok vessels even fired upon each other, mistaking friendly ships for the elusive human attacker. But the success came at a cost. During the 3rd engagement, the Herald sustained damage to its port maneuvering thrusters when a Jarok cruiser managed to score a direct hit before being disabled. The repair process consumed valuable time and resources, and the pattern of hit-and-run attacks was becoming predictable. More concerning was the intelligence gathered from their latest strike. The Jaroks were adapting, adjusting their defensive formations, and implementing new communication protocols to counter the Herald's disruption tactics. Moreover, they had begun deploying troops to Hestia, the smaller of the 2 inhabited planets in the system. They've accelerated their invasion timeline, Reyes observed grimly as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports in her ready room. Our harassment strategy is working, but not quickly enough. Ensign Soar, who had been invited to provide tactical analysis, nodded in agreement. Admiral Jacques is pragmatic. He's calculated that securing a planetary foothold takes priority over maintaining the full invasion protocol. Which means we're running out of time, Reyes concluded. She activated the room's holographic display, showing the current position of the Jarok fleet. Most of the vessels remained in orbit around the Celestia Coordination Station, but a battle group of 5 ships had detached to support the Hestia invasion. Where is Zok's flagship? Still at the center of the main formation, Soar replied. The dominance hasn't moved since our first engagement. Reyes studied the display thoughtfully. He's waiting for us to make a mistake, letting his subordinates handle the planetary invasion while he focuses on eliminating the Herald. A logical strategy, Soar acknowledged. The Herald poses a strategic threat, but it can't prevent the invasion of 2 planets simultaneously. The truth of this assessment hung heavily in the air. Despite their successful strikes, the Herald was still just 1 ship against an empire. They could disrupt, delay, and divert Jarok resources, but they couldn't be everywhere at once. Reyes paced the small confines of her ready room, the familiar motion helping to focus her thoughts. Their current approach was yielding diminishing returns. The Jaroks were adapting, and soon the hit-and-run tactics would cease to be effective. They needed something more decisive, something that would force the Jaroks to reconsider the entire invasion. Ensign, what do we know about the Jarok command structure beyond Admiral Jacques? Soar consulted her datapad. The conquest of the Celestia system falls under the authority of the 3rd Expansion Directive. Admiral Jacques reports directly to the Imperial High Command, but he has full operational autonomy within the assigned territory. And if Jacques were to be killed or captured, the command would pass to his second, Commander Krell, aboard the cruiser Subjugator. However, Krell would be required to seek new authorization from High Command before continuing the invasion. Rhea stopped pacing, a plan taking shape in her mind. How long would that authorization process take? Based on known Jarok protocols, at least 7 standard days. They require consensus from at least 3 High Commanders, who are typically dispersed across different sectors. 7 days, Reyes repeated. That would give Earth Command time to dispatch reinforcements. She reactivated the ship's communication system. Bridge, this is the captain. Summon all department heads to the strategic operations room immediately. As Soar gathered her materials, she looked at Reyes with a mixture of curiosity and concern. You're planning to target Admiral Jacques directly, aren't you? Reyes met her gaze steadily. Sometimes, to save billions, you have to focus on removing just one individual from the equation. The strategic operations room fell silent as Reyes outlined her plan. The holographic display showed a detailed schematic of the Jarok command ship dominance, with key systems highlighted. This is no longer about harassment or delay tactics, Reyes explained. We need to strike at the head of the snake. Admiral Jacques' elimination would force a mandatory command transition and delay the invasion by at least 7 days. enough time for Earth reinforcements to arrive. Torres was the first to respond. Captain, with respect, the Dominance is their most heavily defended vessel. It's surrounded by 5 cruiser-class ships in a layered defense formation. Even approaching it would be nearly impossible. Not if we create the right diversion, Reyes countered. She manipulated the display to show a different section of the Celestia system. Our intelligence indicates that the Xerox have established a forward supply base here, on the moon of Acelia. It's protected by minimal defenses since they consider it well behind their front lines. Major Lee studied the new information with growing interest. Acelia is a natural satellite with unusual properties: heavy metal composition, irregular magnetic field. Our sensors had difficulty mapping it accurately. Exactly, Reyes said. Those same properties will affect Xerox sensors as well. If we approach from Acelia's shadow and use its magnetic field to mask our energy signature, we could potentially get close enough to the main fleet to launch a precision strike against the Dominance. Dr. Kaur frowned. The photon lance would still need a clear line of fire. Even with Acelia as cover, we'd be exposed once we moved into firing position. Yes, Reyes acknowledged. This isn't a hit-and-run mission. We commit fully, deliver a decisive blow to the Dominance, and accept the consequences. The implication was clear to everyone in the room. The Herald would likely sustain severe damage, possibly catastrophic, in the process. Commander Wright broke the tense silence. What's the primary target on the Dominance? Reyes highlighted a section of the schematic. Their bridge module. Xerox command ships centralize all critical personnel in a reinforced section at the center of the vessel. Admiral Jacques, his senior staff, and their primary control systems would all be within the effective radius of the photon lance. One shot, Torres said quietly. Everything would depend on that one shot. Yes, Reyes confirmed. And to maximize our chance of success, we'll need to modify the lance to channel even more power than in our original design. All eyes turned to Dr. Kaur, whose expertise would be critical for such modifications. The engineer stared at the display, her expression troubled. The system is already operating beyond safe parameters, she said slowly. Further modifications would increase power output, but at exponentially greater risk of containment failure. We'd essentially be turning the Herald into a bomb that we hope detonates in the right direction. Reyes held Kaur's gaze. Can it be done? Kaur didn't answer immediately, running calculations in her head. Theoretically, yes. I could reconfigure the containment field to channel additional energy from our auxiliary reactors. It would give us approximately 30% more penetration power, enough to breach the Dominance's reinforced command module. And the risks? Even if the shot is successful, the feedback surge would likely overload multiple critical systems. Best case scenario, we lose propulsion and shields temporarily. Worst case. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Reyes looked around the table, reading the expressions of her senior officers. They understood what she was asking of them, and of the entire crew. This wasn't just a dangerous mission. It was potentially a one-way journey. I won't order anyone to participate in this operation, she said quietly. Each of you has the option to be relieved of duty, with no negative consequences. The same offer will be extended to the entire crew. There was a moment of silence before Major Lee spoke. The Xerox have conquered 17 systems in the past decade alone. Trillions of sentient beings now live under their oppression. If we have a chance to stop them here, no matter the cost, I believe we must take it. One by one, the other officers nodded in agreement. Even Dr. Kaur, despite her technical reservations, gave her assent. Very well, Reyes said, feeling both pride and sorrow at their commitment. We proceed with Operation Kingslayer. Dr. Kaur, begin modifications to the photon lance immediately. Commander Torres, work with Ensign Soar to plot our approach vector, using Acelia's magnetic field as cover. Commander Wright, prepare the crew for possible evacuation scenarios. If the Herald is critically damaged, I want as many people as possible to have a chance at survival." As the meeting dispersed, Reyes remained behind, studying the holographic representation of the dominance. In her 20 years of military service, she had never contemplated a mission with such dire implications. The destruction of Admiral Jacques and his command staff would save countless lives across the Celestia system, but the cost would be high, perhaps including her own life and those of her crew. The question that haunted her wasn't whether the sacrifice was worth it, but whether she had the right to make that decision for 300 others. Even with their voluntary participation, the burden of command meant the ultimate responsibility rested with her alone. As if sensing her thoughts, Dr. Carr returned to the operations room. "The modifications will take approximately 10 hours, she reported. "We'll need to reallocate power from non-essential systems to maintain basic life support during the process." Reyes nodded. "Authorized." Carr hesitated, then asked the question that others had been unwilling to voice. "What are our actual chances of success, Captain? Not the official assessment, but your honest opinion." Reyes considered the question carefully. "If everything goes perfectly, if the magnetic field provides adequate cover, if the photon lance functions at optimal capacity, if the Xerox don't detect us until we're in firing position, then I'd say our chances are approximately 30%. And our chances of survival afterward? Significantly lower," Reyes admitted. "But not zero. I intend to get as many people off this ship as possible if things go wrong." Carr absorbed this with remarkable composure. "I've served on 5 different vessels during my career. None of them had a captain willing to attempt something like this against such overwhelming odds." "Is that a compliment or a criticism, Doctor?" A faint smile crossed Carr's face. "I haven't decided yet. But I do know that if we're going to convert our ship into what essentially amounts to a giant energy cannon, I'd rather not have anyone else at the helm." With that, she departed to begin the modifications, leaving Reyes alone with her thoughts and the weight of the coming mission. The next 10 hours were a carefully orchestrated symphony of preparation across the Herald. Engineering teams worked continuously to modify the photon lance, rerouting power conduits, and reinforcing structural supports to handle the increased energy flow. Navigation officers plotted their approach to Acelia, accounting for the Moon's irregular magnetic field and orbital pattern. Tactical teams ran simulation after simulation, refining the timing of their strike against the dominance. Throughout it all, Reyes moved from department to department, overseeing progress and offering encouragement. The crew's morale remained surprisingly high, given the circumstances, perhaps because having a definitive plan, however dangerous, was preferable to the uncertainty of prolonged guerrilla warfare against a superior force. In her brief moments alone, Reyes recorded personal messages for the families of each senior officer, as well as a general address to the families of the entire crew. It was a captain's duty she had performed only once before, following a skirmish in the Tau Ceti system that had claimed the lives of 7 crew members. Now, she prepared similar messages for 300. "Final preparations are complete, Captain," Torres reported as Reyes returned to the bridge. "We're ready to proceed to Acelia on your command." Reyes took her position in the command chair, feeling the neural interface activate as it synchronized with her thought patterns. "Status of the photon lance?" "Dr. Carr reports modifications are complete. The system is powered down to minimize energy signature during our approach. Estimated time to full charge once activated: 6 minutes. "And the Xerox fleet?" Ensign Soar responded from her station. "No significant changes in formation. The dominance remains at the center, surrounded by 5 cruisers in standard defense configuration. They've increased patrol activities following our previous strikes, but there are no indications they've detected our current position." Reyes took a deep breath, knowing that once she gave the next order, there would be no turning back. "Shipwide address." The communication system activated, connecting her to every compartment on the Herald. This is Captain Reyes. In approximately 40 minutes, we will execute Operation Kingslayer, a precision strike against the Jarok command ship dominance with the objective of eliminating Admiral Vrax Zak and disrupting their invasion timeline. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. I want to be absolutely clear about the nature of this mission. It carries significant risk to this vessel and all aboard. While we have evacuation contingencies in place, the probability of sustaining critical damage is high. Anyone who wishes to be relieved of duty may report to their department head for reassignment to evacuation priority. Another pause, this time to allow her words to sink in. That said, I believe this mission represents our best, perhaps our only, chance to save the billions of lives across the Celestia system. The Herald may be just one ship, but today, one ship will make a difference that echoes across the galaxy. Prepare for departure. Battle stations in 30 minutes. Reyes out. As the communication ended, she turned to Torres. Any requests for relief of duty? None reported, Captain. Reyes nodded, not surprised, but still moved by the crew's commitment. Navigation, set course for Acelia. 1/4 impulse until we're within the magnetic field. Then, silent running. The Herald glided out of the asteroid field that had been its hiding place, accelerating smoothly toward the distant moon of Acelia. On the tactical display, Reyes could see the Jarok fleet, still orbiting the Celestia Coordination Station, unaware of the threat approaching from the system's outer reaches. ETA to Acelia's magnetic field boundary? She asked. 17 minutes at current velocity, the helmsman replied. Tactical, passive scans only. Let's not announce our presence. As the Herald approached Acelia, the unusual properties of the moon became increasingly apparent. Its surface was a mottled gray-brown, pockmarked with impact craters and vast fields of metallic ore deposits. More importantly, the magnetic field surrounding it fluctuated in irregular patterns, creating natural interference that would help mask their approach. Entering magnetic field boundary, the helmsman announced, experiencing minor navigation disruption. Compensate manually, Reyes ordered. Reduce to 1/8 impulse. Tactical. What's our detection profile? Torres studied his readings. The magnetic field is distorting our energy signature as expected. At this distance, Jarok sensors should register us as a minor magnetic anomaly, if they detect us at all. Good. Maintain course along the planned trajectory. Dr. Kaur, status of the photon lance? Kaur's voice came through the comm from engineering. All systems in standby mode. Power conduits are secure. We're ready to begin the charging sequence on your command. Stand by, Reyes replied. We'll initiate charging once we're in final position. The Herald continued its careful approach, using Acelia's bulk to shield it from direct observation by the Jarok fleet. The bridge was unusually quiet, each officer focused intently on their station, aware of the precision required for the mission to succeed. Approaching optimal firing position, the helmsman reported, after 20 tense minutes. Final adjustment to bearing 042 Mark 7. Reyes leaned forward in her command chair. Tactical. What's our line of sight to the dominance? Clear path, Captain. Distance, 57,000 kilometers. Well within the photon lance's effective range. Any indication the Jaroks have detected us? Torres shook his head. Their patrol vessels are maintaining standard search patterns. No course corrections or sensor sweeps in our direction. The moment of decision had arrived. Once they activated the photon lance, the power surge would be detectable despite Acelia's magnetic interference. They would have minutes, perhaps only seconds, before the Jarok fleet responded. Dr. Kaur, begin charging sequence for the photon lance. Initiating now, Captain, Kaur acknowledged. Diverting power from auxiliary systems. Estimated time to full charge, 5 minutes, 48 seconds. The deck plates beneath Reyes's feet vibrated subtly as energy began flowing through the modified conduits. On her command display, She could see power levels rising across the ship as non-essential systems were deactivated to feed the experimental weapon. "All hands, secure for combat," she ordered. "Damage control teams to emergency stations. Evacuation crews on standby." The minutes crawled by as the photon lance charged. Reyes used the time to study the tactical display, confirming the position of each Jarok vessel and mentally reviewing their expected response patterns. The cruisers surrounding the Dominance would move to intercept any threat, but their reaction time would be slowed by the unexpected nature of the attack. "Photon lance at 60% charge," Core reported. "All systems nominal so far." "Jarok fleet still shows no sign of detection," Torres added. The plan was working, but Reyes had learned through bitter experience that no plan survived contact with the enemy unchanged. Something would go wrong. The question was only what and when. "Lance at 80%, Core announced, experiencing minor fluctuations in the containment field, but still within acceptable parameters." As if on cue, Torres suddenly tensed at his station. "Captain, detecting active sensor sweeps from 2 Jarok cruisers. They're scanning this sector." "Have they locked onto us?" "Not yet, but their scan pattern is narrowing. I estimate 30 seconds before they pinpoint our position." Reyes made an instant decision. "Dr. Core, we need the lance now." "It's only at 87%, Captain. The penetration power will be reduced." "It's enough. Prepare to fire on my mark." The next moments unfolded with crystalline clarity in Reyes's perception. On the tactical display, she could see the Jarok sensor sweeps converging on their position. The power indicators for the photon lance showed it straining to reach full capacity. The modified systems pushed beyond their design limitations. "Jarok cruisers changing course," Torres reported urgently. "They're moving to investigate." "Lance at 92%, Core called. "Captain, the containment field is becoming unstable. We need to fire now or abort." Reyes focused on the image of the Dominance, the massive Jarok command ship, still unaware of the threat. All their previous strikes, all their sacrifices, had led to this moment. "Target locked," Torres confirmed. "Fire!" Reyes commanded. The Herald shuddered as the photon lance discharged, channeling the combined energy of the ship's main and auxiliary reactors into a single, coherent beam. On the view screen, a blinding stream of polarized photons erupted from the ship's modified forward array, crossing the vacuum of space in an instant to strike the Dominance. The effect was devastating. The concentrated energy pierced the Jarok flagship's shields as if they were tissue paper, boring through multiple decks to reach the reinforced command module at its core. Secondary explosions cascaded across the vessel as power systems overloaded and structural supports failed. "Direct hit on target," Torres reported, his voice strained with both exhilaration and tension. "Dominance has sustained critical damage to its command module and primary systems." Before Reyes could respond, the Herald lurched violently. Warning alarms blared across the bridge as feedback from the photon lance surged through the ship's systems. "Report!" Reyes demanded, gripping her command chair as the deck tilted beneath her. The containment field collapsed immediately after discharge. Core's voice came through, punctuated by the sound of explosions in engineering. "We have cascading power failures throughout the ship. Main reactor is initiating emergency shutdown," Torres added grimly. "Jarok fleet is responding. All vessels are breaking formation and moving to attack positions. Estimated time to weapons range, 3 minutes." The situation was deteriorating faster than even their worst-case scenarios had predicted. Without main power, the Herald's shields and propulsion systems would be operating at minimal capacity, making them easy prey for the vengeful Jarok fleet. "Damage control? Status of critical systems?" Reyes called. "Shields at 28% and falling," came the response. "Propulsion limited to maneuvering thrusters only. Weapon systems offline. Life support stable on emergency power." Reyes quickly assessed their options. The Herald was crippled, but had accomplished its primary objective. Now, the priority had to be saving as many of the crew as possible. "Initiate evacuation protocol Alpha," she ordered. "All non-essential personnel to escape pods immediately. Security teams to escort prisoners to designated pods." As officers acknowledged her orders, Reyes turned to Torres. "What's the status of the Dominance?" Torres studied his readings. "Massive structural damage. Their power grid is fluctuating. No sign of weapons activation or shield regeneration. I think we got them, Captain." A small victory, but it would mean nothing if the entire crew was lost to Xerox retaliation. "Ensign Soar, open a channel to the Xerox fleet. Let's see if we can buy some time." Soar worked her console. "Channel open, Captain." Reyes straightened in her chair, projecting authority despite their desperate situation. "This is Captain Lana Reyes of the UES Herald, to all Xerox vessels. Admiral Jacques has been eliminated, and your command structure is compromised. Under Xerox military protocol, Commander Krell must now seek authorization from Imperial High Command before continuing this invasion. Any further hostile action without such authorization constitutes a violation of your own military code." There was no immediate response, but the tactical display showed the Xerox vessels slowing their approach. They were considering her words, or at least buying time to assess the situation on the Dominance. "Evacuation in progress," Wright reported from his security station. "First wave of pods launching now." On the tactical display, Reyes could see the small evacuation pods ejecting from the Herald, each carrying up to 6 crew members. Their trajectory would take them toward the outer edge of the system, away from the Xerox fleet. "Incoming transmission from the Xerox cruiser subjugator," Soar announced. On screen, the view screen flickered to show a Xerox officer, his stone-like features set in a rigid expression. "This is Commander Krell of the Imperial Xerox Navy. Your unprovoked attack on our forces demands immediate retaliation. Your invasion of the Celestia system was the unprovoked action, Commander," Reyes countered. "And now, with Admiral Zoc eliminated, you face a choice. Pursue a vendetta against one damaged vessel, or follow your military protocols and seek proper authorization before continuing this campaign." Krell's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "You are attempting to manipulate our procedures to your advantage." "I'm reminding you of your duty as a Xerox officer," Reyes replied. "Your military code exists for a reason. Disregard it, and you undermine the very foundation of your empire." There was a tense pause as Krell visibly wrestled with the decision. Finally, he spoke. "You will surrender your vessel and all personnel immediately. In return, I will delay further planetary invasion operations until receiving confirmation from Imperial High Command." It wasn't a complete victory, but it was better than immediate destruction. More importantly, it would give the evacuation pods time to reach safety. "We accept your terms with one condition," Reyes said. "Our evacuation pods are to be granted safe passage out of the system." "Unacceptable!" Krell snapped. "All human personnel are to be considered prisoners of war." Reyes hardened her tone. "The Herald is already launching evacuation pods. If you fire on unarmed escape vessels, I will overload our remaining reactor and detonate this ship in proximity to your fleet. You may survive, Commander Krell, but you'll have to explain to Imperial High Command why you lost half your remaining vessels to avenge Admiral Zoc instead of securing the system as ordered." Another pause. Longer this time. "The evacuation pods will not be pursued," Krell finally conceded. "But you and your command staff will surrender to Xerox authority immediately." "Agreed," Reyes said, ignoring the shocked expressions of her bridge officers. "Prepare to receive our surrender in 20 minutes. Herald out." As the transmission ended, Torres immediately protested. "Captain, you can't surrender to the Xerox. Their treatment of military prisoners is notorious." "I have no intention of surrendering, Commander," Reyes replied calmly. "But I need to ensure the evacuation pods have sufficient time to clear the system. 20 minutes should be adequate." Understanding dawned on the officers' faces. Reyes was sacrificing herself to save the crew. "What's your plan, Captain?" Wright asked. "The secondary command shuttle in Hangar Bay 3 has enhanced stealth capabilities," Reyes explained. "I'll use it to reach Acelia's surface. The magnetic interference should mask my presence long enough to contact Earth Command once the Xerox have withdrawn." "That's a one-person mission," Torres observed. "The rest of the command staff will evacuate with the remaining crew." Reyes finished firmly. "That's an order, Commander. I need you to lead our people to safety and ensure Earth Command receives full details of our operation here." Before further objections could be raised, Dr. Kor's voice came through the comm. "Captain, we have a situation in engineering. The feedback damage from the photon lance has compromised the antimatter containment system. We're implementing emergency protocols, but I can't guarantee stability beyond 15 minutes. The news changed everything. If the antimatter containment failed, the resulting explosion would destroy not just the Herald, but potentially damage or destroy nearby Xerox vessels as well, including any that might be in pursuit of the evacuation pods." "Understood, Doctor. Continue evacuation procedures. Ensure all remaining personnel are off the ship within 12 minutes. Reyes turned to her bridge officers. "Change of plans. We all evacuate now. Set the Herald on a collision course with the damaged Dominance. Then initiate reactor overload sequence." "Captain," Torres began to object. "That's an order, Commander. The Herald has served its purpose. Now our priority is ensuring as many of our people survive as possible." The evacuation proceeded with disciplined urgency. As the senior officers prepared to depart, Reyes recorded one final ship's log, documenting their mission and its outcomes for historical record. Then, she programmed the autopilot to direct the failing vessel toward the Xerox flagship and initiated the reactor overload sequence. "Final evacuation pod ready, Captain," Wright reported from the hangar deck. "We're the last ones aboard." Reyes took a final look around the bridge that had been her home for 3 years. The Herald had been more than just a ship. It had been the embodiment of humanity's determination to stand against overwhelming odds. Now, it would deliver one final blow against tyranny. "Coming, Commander," she replied, making her way to the turbolift. Moments later, the last evacuation pod launched from the Herald, carrying Reyes and her senior officers away from the dying ship. Through the viewport, they watched as the vessel continued on its final trajectory, heading directly toward the crippled Dominance. The Xerox fleet, realizing too late the Herald's intention, attempted to intercept, but without Admiral Jacques' immediate command, their response was uncoordinated and ineffective. Some vessels moved to protect the Dominance, while others broke formation to pursue the evacuation pods, contrary to Krell's agreement. Then, in a final blaze of defiance, the Herald's reactor reached critical overload. The antimatter containment field collapsed, releasing energy equivalent to a small sun. The explosion engulfed both the Herald and the Dominance, sending shockwaves that damaged nearby Xerox vessels and scattered debris across a wide area. In the evacuation pod, Reyes and her officers watched in solemn silence. The Herald was gone, but its mission had been accomplished. Admiral Zoc was eliminated. The Xerox command structure was in disarray, and the invasion timeline was disrupted. "What now, Captain?" Ensign Soar asked quietly. Reyes turned from the viewport. "Now we survive, regroup, and prepare for the next phase. The Xerox may have lost their admiral, but they still have a substantial force in this system. Our job is to ensure Earth Command understands the threat and responds appropriately." As the evacuation pod accelerated toward the outer system, Reyes allowed herself a moment of reflection. The Herald had been just one ship against an empire, but it had changed the course of the invasion through courage, innovation, and sacrifice. And in doing so, it had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity would not surrender its freedom without a fight. The Xerox Empire had terrorized the galaxy for half a century, conquering worlds with methodical precision and ruthless efficiency. But now, they had encountered something they hadn't expected, a lone human battleship with the audacity to challenge their dominance. And though the cost had been high, that single act of defiance had kindled a spark of hope that would soon become a flame of resistance across the stars. In the darkness of space, Reyes gazed out at the distant stars, toward Earth, and the reinforcements that would eventually arrive. The battle for the Celestia system was far from over, but its outcome had been forever altered by the actions of one ship and its crew. And when the final history of this conflict was written, it would begin with these words: "They terrorized the galaxy until a lone human battleship entered orbit."